I'd like to thank Pat for inviting me to share information about the Sumter County School District. And I really appreciate the Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Debbie Moffett, said that she would join me. Pat asked us to talk about a couple of areas. I decided to expand the area that she wanted me to talk about. So that's going to be a little bit different than what she sort of probably anticipates. But there are two really favorite subjects that I love to talk about. One is living in the villages, which I've done for almost 20 years. And the other is being on the school board in the Sumter County School District. And just because it's something that Pat said, I'll just give you a really brief history about school districts in Sumter County. There are 67 counties. There are 67 school districts. Each county is a school district. Each school district has a school board and a superintendent. The school board members can range from 5, 7, or 9 members elected, depending on how big the school district is, how many students, how many schools. The superintendent can either be elected or he can be hired under contract. Sumter County happens to have an elected superintendent that has been elected since I think it's 1996.
Today is the end of his 27th year.
Today is the end of his 27th year of serving as superintendent. He is well respected throughout the entire state, to say the least. He's mentored other superintendents, etc. But that's a brief history of school districts in the state of Florida, 67 of us. We happen to have a 5-member school board, and we all work extremely well together. Now, getting on to the information about Sumter County School Districts. See if that works. No, it did not. Here it goes. In Sumter County, we have 9 district-run or traditional public schools, and we have 1 charter school in the workplace, and which has 2 campuses, Buffalo Ridge and Middleton. And combined between the 9 public schools and the charter school, we have 9,467 students. Out of that number, 5,780 of them are in our public schools. Let me just go back one here. The responsibility of the school district is to educate the students to make sure that they will have a productive and successful life upon graduation. The responsibility of the school board is to ensure that the school district has the resources and the tools necessary to give these students the very best education in the safest conditions. The village's charter school has their own board of directors and their own director of education, but they have the same responsibility that we do. They just do it a little differently because they fall under a different statute than we do. But the charter school is still under the umbrella of the Sumter County School District. Keep going wrong right here. The vision statement is preparing the next generation for today, preparing the next generation today. And that goes along with what I just spoke about, what the responsibility is of the school district and of the school board. We start in elementary school. And the reason I went this route, instead of just talking about what Pat asked me to talk about, was career tech education, was that with so much going on around the country, with what you hear about what children are being taught or how they're being taught, I tell people, not in Sumter County, not in the state of Florida, and I think most of them usually believe me, but you know, they like to have some proof. So starting in elementary school, we use a program a learning program. It's called AVID. Stands for Advantage Via Individual Determination. And this was a program that was started in the 1980s in California by a teacher who saw that most of her students who were economically disadvantaged were not learning at the same level that other students were that came from different means. So she developed a program because they weren't learning because they didn't have the potential to do it. They just didn't have the motivation, they didn't have the self-confidence. So she developed this program that has 5 elements in a strategy that we call WICKER: writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. And applying these 5 elements, the students started to get confidence, they learned study skills, they learned how to communicate, they learned self-advocacy. And they started to excel in their schoolwork. And now, AVID's way of learning is used in hundreds of schools around the country, if not thousands of schools around the country. And we are AVID. Our schools are AVID. From kindergarten through 12th grade, AVID is part of their school learning. And we're real happy that in 2018, the Sumter County Middle School was named an AVID National Demonstration School of Excellence. And earlier this year, they were awarded with this same designation again. And AVID goes along with what our district initiative is, which is upon graduation to make sure that every student is either enrolled, enlisted, or employed. And everything all the programs that we have in our schools work toward this goal for these students. And from college prep programs to career tech education to military, we have everything available for them. And if they want to go to college, we have what's called AVID for Seniors, which is more of the extension of the AVID learning program, but it's built for seniors to prepare them for college life. It's an opt-in program for the student and for their parents. They sign a contract stating that they will be responsible for maintaining at least a 2.5 grade average. They will do at least 2 hours of study every night, if not more. They will have extracurricular activities. They will do community service, and there's several other responsibilities that they sign a contract to do to be an AVID senior. They have an advanced placement courses, which is established by the College Board, their College Board approved courses. And they earn college credits, and it helps them, the more AP courses they take, the better the grades are, the better placement they have when they enroll for admissions in colleges or university. We have students that do dual enrollment, which we have an agreement with Lake Sumter State College. They take college courses, college credits, and it gives them a step ahead for when they do get into the university or they do get into college, that they've got a lot of their freshman courses already out of the way, and sometimes they earn enough credits when they graduate high school that they also graduate with a 2-year college degree. There's also another opportunity for them for earning their high school diploma through the ACE, which is the Advanced International Certificate of Education, that is administered by the University of Cambridge in England. And it allows the student to take courses to study on subjects that are of interest to them. areas that they want to really focus on, say when they get out of school, or when they get into college. So it allows them to become proficient in those areas. And this really just started a few years ago, and now universities and colleges accept this diploma instead of like the regular high school diploma that they have. So this is preparing for college, but then you have students that say, I want to get more into a career, or I want to have a career that could benefit me even when I'm in college. But let me take one step back before I get to that. This is a snapshot of the number of seniors and the number of high schoolers that are involved or enrolled in the Seniors for Avid, AP enrollment, the ACE enrollment, and dual enrollment. So you can see we have a number of students that are very interested still in going to college when they graduate. For those that want to go to a career, we have over 18 academies that we're offering this year in our Sumter County schools. And in Wildwood, South Sumter High School, and South Sumter Middle School, you can see the number that's taking one academy. I had it written down here, but it didn't come up on the screen. There's over 1,000 students that are taking at least one academy. There are, I think, about a little over 900 students that are taking more than one academy.
What's an academy?
I'll get to that in just a minute. An academy is on a career opportunity where they learn about that career. For example, which is better to say than try to explain it to you, you know, it's like take the landscaping academy at Wildwood Middle High School. It happens to be the only landscaping academy offered in the state of Florida. All these academies, most of them are all built for what the local community needs business-wise. And living in the villages, everybody knows that landscaping is extremely important. But we have 36 students enrolled this year in the Landscaping Academy. They can earn a certification from the Florida Nursery Growers Association. So they're all set to go into the landscaping business, and not just somebody that's going to be out doing the mower when the truck comes around, but they'll know all about landscaping, turf, you know, different grasses, everything. We have what we call the EPIC Academy. EPIC stands for Extraordinary People Influencing Change. These are students, this is our Teachers Academy. A couple of years ago, we decided to start what we call Grow Within, or Grow Your Own. And we started with this Teachers Academy, and it's for students that would like to become educators. And it's a 4-year program, so it's 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, which a lot of these academies are 4-year programs. Most of them earning industry certifications when they get finished with it. But the EPIC Academy, during the time that they're in the academy, they're also helping to tutor students at the elementary schools. So they get like first-hand experience, and what our hope is that after graduation and they get their teacher's certificate, they will all come back to Sumter County and teach. That's the goal. Okay? The Construction, Electricity, HVAC Academy. They have the apprenticeship and the pre-apprenticeship program. And I don't know, it was in the paper, I think, just the last couple of days about how important businesses are saying that the apprenticeships programs are in different fields. And the students that are going to the Instruction Academy, along with the Village's High School Construction Management Academy, They all work with Habitat for Humanity in building homes in Lake and Sumter County, and I'm sure you've read about that in the paper. Back to the Teaching Academy, I just wanted to mention that we have 38 students at South Sumter High School enrolled in that, and we have 41 students at Wildwood Middle High School that are enrolled in the Teachers Academy. At South Sumter High School, they have some of those same choices, but one of the biggest academies they have there is the Agri-Science Academy, and that is animal science, agricultural operations, biotechnology, horticultural. The students are members of the FFA, which is the Future Farmers of America, which is one of the largest youth organizations that teach the science of agriculture. They teach leadership, speaking, just management of agricultural areas. It's just a phenomenal organization. And 2 years ago, the president of the South Sumter High School FFA chapter became the state FFA president for this in the state of Florida. As a matter of fact, Mrs. Moffat is a lifetime alumni of the Future Farmers of America Association. We have the Health Academy both at Wildwood and at South Sumter. Health Academy, the students can learn or can earn their certified nursing assistant certification, CNA. They become an EKG technician, lab technician. They all get certified. They can get to work in businesses that we have that we need so desperately here, in Sumter. They also have a video production where they learn everything about TV producing networks. They do every morning for their high school. They have their own radio station where they give the news, weather, sports, just like you watch Channel 6 News or so. This is the Raider News. And you can see some of these others, the criminal justice, which is a four-year academy, and the student has to be referred by a teacher in order to get into this. They learn all about the criminal justice system. They become possibly a 911 operator. Welding, easy early child care, and the list goes on. The village's charter school, they hope to start their Teachers Academy next year. In the meantime, this is the academies that they have down at their new campus in Middleton. And for most of these, they've built spatial facilities for each one. You take the Culinary Arts Academy, they built them a state-of-the-art kitchen and dining room, which I said, I know that like Gordon Ramsay would just scream to have. Their Fine Arts, Dance, and Music Academy, they've built a theater for them for their performances. And I like to call it the Mini Sharon, but they call it the Tracy. And they also have a mini stage, which is built very similar to the studio at Tierra del Sol.
Can I ask you to go back to slide for me for a minute, please? Just for a second. I apologize. Thank you.
That's okay. Business and banking, they work with Citizens First Bank. They have the Health Academy, fitness and coaching, numerous academies for students that some that they don't want to, they don't have a desire to go to college. They want to have a career. They want to go to work. But as I said, some also go to college, but these are good credentials to be able to have to fall back on. This is just a snapshot of the different academies what takes place. I don't know if you can really read them back there or not. But, you know, for the agricultural, it's horticultural, science and service, technical operations, computer gaming, programming. So there's numerous choices that these students have. And to help them along, every year we hold a hiring fair. And earlier this year, I think it was in May, we held one. 17 students were hired. There were 43 students potentially hired based, waiting for different pending onboarding protocols. But 16 of those students committed to join the military. And some of those students that said they wanted to go to the military, they were members of the South Sumter High School Navy National Defense Cadet Corps. And this is a forerunner to the JROTC program for schools that aren't big enough to have a complete JROTC. This is part of the Navy National Defense Cadet Corps. And in 2019, I invited the cadets to come up and take a tour of the Eisenhower Recreation Center with Colonel Harry Lumpkin as their tour guides, just to give them a little bit more military history. And this program emphasizes citizenship, leadership, service activities, and students that have at least 3 years of this cadet corps, when they graduate, they go into the military at a higher rank than ones that do not. So as you can see, we really do give everything possible to our students to help them prepare for their future. But then there are students that also, they may be doing academies and they may be going to college, but they have ideas for starting their own business. So to help those students, we hold every year the Future Entrepreneurs Contest. And students submit an online business plan. It's judged by numerous community members based on 5 elements. As a matter of fact, my husband and I have been judges. I think Mrs. Moffett has been a judge also. And I'll tell you, some of these ideas, you could really, you plan on seeing them sometime in the future there. But the top 2 submissions from each school, that's the South Sumter High School, Wildwood Middle High School, and the Villages Charter for the Villages High School, the top 2 submissions then get to present their business plan to a live panel of judges and to a live audience. So it's sort of like, I think it's called what, Shark Tank, or it's similar to that. And they win cash prizes. This will take place February 27th. If any of you would like to attend, you can let Pat know, you can let me know. I'm sure that she probably has, the information about it also. And, Pat, being a member of the Wildwood Wildcat Booster Club, she's heard a lot about these students. And, I mean, she's heard the students speak that are part of AVID, and she knows about the students that are doing the advanced placement and dual enrollment and ones that are taking these academies. So she knows firsthand, how special all these students are. And
yeah, I'll support what she's saying. They presented when we have our meetings at their media center. They're articulate, they're smart. You look at them and I go, I don't think I was like that as that age. They are amazing.
I am still not like that, okay? But this is how we prepare our students for a successful and a productive future, with a lot more programs woven into each grade. But the question I am always asked, which is one of the questions that Pat asked is, how do we fund everything we do? So that is why I asked Mrs. Moffett. But before I ask her to come up here, I want to tell you a little bit something about her. Debbie Moffett, Assistant Superintendent, is a fifth-generation Floridian and a graduate of the Sumter County School System, and she has devoted her entire education to this school district for 34 years. She has taught at the elementary school, secondary schools. She was voted Webster Elementary Teacher of the Year in 1993. She has served as principal, assistant principal. She has served as the district's first grant writer. She's an elementary specialist, an elementary director, senior director of instructional programs for grades K through 12. She currently serves as the past president for the Florida Association of District Instructional Materials Administrator. She has served as the state grant reviewer for the Florida Department of Education. And she was also instrumental in restarting the Sumter Schools Enhancement Foundation, which is where you just made a donation to today, which we really appreciate. She has volunteered as director of the Sumter County Fair Association, served 2 years as its president, and as I've already said, she is a lifelong alumni member of the Future Farmers of America. So, Mrs. Moffett, I am thrilled that she is with me. She holds a very special place in my heart and in the heart of our school district. So, I will log out of mine, and you're up.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so glad to be here this morning. Oh, you'll love it, she is. Anyway, I am Deputy Moffett, Assistant Superintendent. I'm serving this my 4th year as Assistant Superintendent. My father was a graduate of Bushnell High School. My son's a graduate of South Sumter High School, and I have grandkids in the system. So I'm very dedicated and invested in our education system. I was brought here today to talk about some things. Our district information, you'll have a little bit of duplication, but not much. School funding, school vouchers, and the charter school. Again, we have 5 elementary schools, a middle high, which is 7 through 12. It used to be 6 through 12, but due to growth, we had to open up a new school. So we have an intermediate school. This is serving grades 4 through 5. We have an alternative school. We have a charter school, of course. We have an alternative school, which serves students in grades 6 through 12. It's kind of like a second chance school. And then we have some virtual programs for students for various and assorted reasons. We have 459.5 teachers. 0.5. And that is our HVAC person. He only works half-time. So anyway, we had to cut him in half. And then we have 496 classified teachers, or individuals. That's our paraprofessionals, our bus drivers, our custodians, our food service. We have 41 administrators, 31 confidential, as our confidential secretaries, 14 administrative interns. These are our assistant principal interns. They're in a training program, wanting to become principals. So we put them through anywhere from a 1 to 6 year training program. And then of course we have 5 board members. Our enrollment now, the numbers might be a little different, but the numbers that we have at 8 a.m. on one day are different when we have at 4 p.m. Kids coming and going, and so what numbers she might, depending on what day she asked for them. Mine were on 10-13. We have 5,500 traditional students, about 3,700 charter schools. We have 345 BPK or pre-K ESC kids, and that's most of those go up to that. Where she had said we had 5,700, those are up in those numbers. We do have 132 homeless students that we serve, and we have over 1,000 kids that are on home education. funding. This is the puzzle piece. You start out with our number of kids, the unweighted FTE, and you put all those numbers together. In July, we were about 10, supposed to be projected 10,000 students. There's program factors, what it costs to educate a kid in a certain program. That gives you your weighted FTE of 11,000 students. And then the state has determined our base student allocation, which is $5,139.73 per student. Now, we used to, now this is the green arrow is a good arrow. Before, we only got 0.97% of that $5,000. We're now at a solid 1, so now we get every dollar that was allocated per student. And that gives you our base funding of $56 million. We are not in the area of declining enrollment, so we do not get those funds, but that's a category that the state has, declining enrollment. If you're a district that your enrollment's declining, they try to help you out and maintain your funding level. Sparsity is something that we had before. At one time, it was worth to us about $1.6 million, but because of the villages, we're no longer sparse. So that funding was removed. Our millage rate, safe schools, we get almost $1 million to be safe. This is for hardening of our schools, for our SROs, for our school guardians. And then we have the state amount for ESC students that we serve. There's a federal IDA grant, but this is the state allocation for our students, over $4 million.
What does ESE stand for?
Students with disabilities. Different states call it different things, but ours is student with disabilities. I'm sorry. And then we have our education enrichment allocation that's given to us. We used to have a reading allocation, and I have these numbers for me. Hang on just one second. And what the state did recently, they did away with some of our categoricals. Everyone is considered a categorical. And our reading fund was about $592,000, but they moved it into the lump sum. They took it out as categorical, so you will no longer see a reading amount. They've given that money into the base allocation. We have a mental health allocation of over $600,000. We have 5 mental health therapists and a mental health coordinator that we have at our schools with our students. We used to have a digital allocation several years ago. I think it's back in 2018, 2019. There was a big push for one-to-ones computers for our students, and we have that. Pre-K to 12, we have one-to-one devices. We used to get $630,000 to help with that initiative. That's now been done away with, and the district has to pick up that amount or thereabouts. Teacher lead money. This is money that teachers are given for school supplies. That has been put into the base allocation. Transportation, over $1.5 million. It costs way more than $1.5 million. That's one area that is not fully funded. Instructional materials. This is my personal block right here. I'm over textbooks and instructional materials for the district, and that amount last year was $766,000. That money has now been lumped in to the big pot. Now I'm fortunate because our district still has a reading allocation. We still budget a instructional materials allocation. So our district still kept those categories so that we can continue to support those as they should be. And that's thanks to the board. Now, teacher salary increase, was a separate categorical. Now they have put that into the basic student allocation. Virtual, our gross state and local FEP is $66 million. And then there's required local effort. The required local effort, the $59 million, is what is the state determines that amount. We don't determine it, that comes down from the state. And I'll show you some more numbers in just a minute. We had a proration. Proration is because we have more kids or less kids that we set the budget in. They'll adjust things a little bit. And so we got another $75,000. The scholarships is the vouchers that you're looking at. That is projected to be used this coming school year for students on the voucher program, over $2 million. And then we have class size reduction. You know, we have a state amendment for class size. We have to meet class size in K3, 1 to 18, 4, 8, 22 kids, and 9, 12, 25 kids. So the state does give us money to maintain those ratios. And we meet that every year. And then you have the local effort, discretionary local effort, 0.78 meals. That 16 million is what the board has flexibility with and able to use. And so our budget for state and local is $89 million. What I want to show you here, this is 2005-06 at the bottom. Okay? Just look at the colors. The orange is local and the tan is state. So back in 2005-06, this district received the majority of their funds from the state. Look at 23-24. How that's changed over the past due to becoming a property-rich county. That is through property taxes that we receive, and we are capped at 90%. Again, a look at Sumter, Citrus Lake, and Marion. I knew that we might have some people from other districts. Sumter County, you can see in the blue, is the local funding, and the yellow is the state funding. And that's how we compare with the counties that surround us.
Do you have control of that? Or
No, ma'am. No control. State funding, I said it's capped at 90%, so we get 10% of our funding is from the state. 10% of that, almost $100 million, comes from the state. And then 90% comes from local. And then we do have federal funding of about $7.4 million. We have CTE grants. Some of the programs we talked about is provided funding through federal grants that we apply for. AE is adult ed. We have grants for adult ed. English literacy and civics, we have received grants, federal grants for that. We have just purchased new civics materials for our students. IDEA is the federal Students with Disabilities grant that we received funds for. Title I is for helping disadvantaged students. We qualify for that. Title II is professional learning. Title III is for our ESOL, our students of English of speakers of other languages. And then Title IV is we have the 21st Century Grant. We supplement our mental health programs with that, and we also provide some STEM activities through those funds. This is the state, and the counties are on the left. Not all of them are listed. The arrow is at Lake County. The pink line at the top is Sumter. That shows you there's about 7 districts that are capped at the 90%. And then Union County, poor little Union County north of Gainesville, is the poorest property county in the state. So the majority of their funds come from the state. Okay?
So when you say it's capped at 90% of what? I missed that, sorry.
Of what, when they do that big formula,
Okay.
and they say that we get $90 million,
Okay.
90% of that is going to come from taxpayers, 10% comes from the state.
Local property.
Local property
Just
tax.
curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they come up with how much we're supposed to get, and then they decide how it falls out. But that is what that kind of looks like. And then there was a question about vouchers. And like I said, we have a little over 1,000 students that are on home education. They have put in, it's about, they've limited to, right now, capped about 438 kids. If you took that amount and divided by the 5139, about 438 kids could be funded through vouchers for this coming school year. Like I said, we have 127 kids on the Florida Empowerment Scholarship, which is a different voucher program, and that's about $652,000. And then we have 59 students that are on personalized education plans, and that's about $300,000. And those children are not in our school system.
Which ones are those, at the bottom?
The bottom ones are most of those are ESE kids. that have chosen to go to a private school or to a different place.
How does the per pupil allocation, the general number, compare to how much these kids are costing us?
Ask that question again for me.
In a couple slides ago, you showed that you have a 5,000 something
Right.
per pupil allocation. How much are these kids getting more or less? Are they, I shouldn't say getting, are they costing more or less than that?
It depends. And even that 5,000 base,
Yeah.
if you include transportation, if you include reading, if you include some of those other things, then we get sometimes up to 8,000 for a student that's a 255, and students with disabilities as a 255, they're worth in like 20-some thousand. So it depends on what they are. This is just an average. And so it depends on what those students are. They won't be getting transportation. They wouldn't be, but they might qualify for the reading amount. And so it just depends on who they are and what they qualify for. That is just the base amount. So our kids get more than the 5,000 as well, depending upon what program they fall into. CTE gets funded at a higher level, like a 1.3 or something like that. So it depends on the programs they're in and who they are. So that's a good question. Thank you. But unless you know the kids in particular, I can't tell you exactly. But the charter school. The village's charter school was established in 2001. It started as an elementary school, and over the years, of course, has grown. It is a public school. I read an article recently that called it a private school. It is not. It is a public school, and they have, of course, as Ms. Moss said, has a north campus that serves K-8, and they have the south campus that serves K-12. Out of that $89 million that we had or whatever, they get $24 million of that because of the students that they serve. And out of our LCOM or our tax base, they get about another $7.8 million. And they don't qualify for all the grants that we receive. They do not get Title I funds. So it depends upon the grant whether or not they qualify or not. But if they do qualify, then we do invite them to participate. And this is, I have asterisks on everything because this is what was budgeted. It was presented to the board in July. We are funded based on a date in October and a date in February. There's a date certain in October that we take head counts and program counts, and we get 50% of our funds based on the kids that are enrolled in that date, and then again, the other 50% will be based in a February date. It could be more, it could be less, depending upon enrollment.
Do they serve?
Pam?
Do they serve special needs children?
They serve some students, some special needs. The district is responsible for serving the whole continuum, and they do serve some students.
The charter schools. So
Yes.
do they have special ed classes, or they have things like reading,
They serve students that need inclusion. They receive up to 150 minutes of inclusion services, which is like a paraprofessional going in and assisting with a kid. To my knowledge, they do not have self-contained classrooms.
How is it determined whether a child with special needs goes to the village's charter school?
They have an enrollment process. Their IEP is reviewed, and then the school determines whether or not they can serve that student. If they cannot, and it's a Sumter student, then we serve them. If they're late for Marion, then they go to that zone school. Just for kicks and giggles, the village charter school, I had this ran a couple weeks ago, and these are the zip codes that charter school serves. And you can see there's actually one student there that technically resides in Camden, Georgia. But I'm sure, I don't know who these kids are, but it could be a traveling nurse. It could be a doctor that's here maybe for an extended period of time and they move the family here for a temporary. But this is where the charter school serves. As you can see, Sumter is the largest, it's 35.99%. And the reason this is important is that when we share our funds with them, it's based on that number. In the article that I read recently, it said they get 50% of all of our funds. That is an inaccurate statement. They get whatever the percentage of students that are ours. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
So do the students who attend the charter school from other counties, do those counties have to send over their per pupil allotment to you, or to the county?
No, ma'am. Now, the district has for multiple years, 10 years, 15 years, have requested from the state to have the money follow the child. Well, that's the big words right now with the vouchers as far as the money following the kids. So we're hoping that that will take some weight now, because Sumter is the only, and they told us we were unique, we're the only district that has this much of this problem. You always have kids going across borders, but it's usually 50-50. You know, we get 10, you might get 12, or back and forth. This is a lot. 67% of those kids are not ours. Yes, our taxpayers are paying for 67% of those kids that are not ours. Now, we expect the Lake County number of 30% to increase with the South Campus being so close to Lake County line. We think that's going to change over time. I actually think Marion might get less, because many of those kids that were in the North Campus are not coming down to the South Campus. So I think these numbers are going to change in the next year or two. But I can tell you that our superintendent and our board have always fought for our Sumter taxpayers to say that Marion County should be sending funds, Lake County should be sending funds, the money should follow the child, but that's not how the system is set up. But we have advocated for that through our legislative pamphlets that go up. They go up for legislative days and talk to legislators. We had done a white paper in the past and presented it, but it only affects Sumter. And so we're now hoping, like with the new vouchers, with the whole thing of the money following the child, that eventually that's going to take hold and fix that problem.
Debbie?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the legislative reasoning for the money not following the child?
Because it affects one district.
Okay.
Because and before, like I said, many districts have kids that cross lines, depending upon where they live. But it's usually a wash. You know, you might lose 100, you might get 110. I mean, it's very, very close. This is the only place where it's so dramatic. It's in the thousands of children that are coming from other places. So it's just something we keep preaching, and hopefully that someone will eventually listen to us.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to leave you with the three things that I want you to think about, or to know, is that we have dedicated staff to ensure student excellence. From our superintendent, who I've worked for 30, he hired me as a teacher. And in fact, he was a 7th grade science teacher when I was in 8th grade. Thank goodness I didn't have him for a teacher. And then I taught 8th grade math in the same room I had 8th grade math in. So wicked little circle that we have. But dedicated staff. We have excellent as principals, excellent teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers. Now, I need 29 bus drivers. I have a shortage of 29 bus drivers. Anybody? I have an application for you if you want one. We do have a shortage of bus drivers. It is a very difficult job, but it's one of the most important jobs we have, getting kids to and from school safely. So tell your friends. We've always dedicated ourselves to being a high-performing district. The superintendent's always had high standards for our students. We expect every child to succeed, every child to grow, every child to become a productive citizen. And so we've always been rated an A or B from the DOE for the last 20 years. And then the superintendent puts safety first. Every parent wants their kid to come to school and to get home from school safely. Now, do people make mistakes sometimes? Absolutely. Do humans make mistakes? Absolutely. But I can tell you that we have policies and procedures in place, and that's the board's main job, is policy. Be sure they have policies in place that educate students, that protect students, that provide us with a quality staff. And so, in any interview, when we interview for a principal, and you say, what are your top 3 priorities for your school, they better say safety first. Because if safety's not the most important thing, then we don't want you. And then, of course, high standards and a culture of learning, and all those things are rolled in together. But that's what I have, unless you have any other questions. Yes, ma'am.
I had asked you earlier, but maybe they'd like to hear, with the universal vouchers, I was wondering, is there any amount that has been added to what schools are provided, considering what that's going to open up?
Well, the state put in about that $2 million that they've added to our budget that they believe will be used for vouchers. And I know there's talks about, they've always capped them or limited, like you have $40,000 or $40 million worth of vouchers or whatever. I believe they're going to expand that. I think they're going to take the caps off, and I think they're going to allow whoever wants a voucher can have a voucher.
And that doesn't go through you, that choosing vouchers?
No, what they do is apply through, I think a Step Up for Kids is, there's actually 2 places, but Step Up is the main one, that the parent goes and applies for it. We're only hoping that, like I said, we get paid twice a year, or based on twice a year, that if a kid was with us in October, and we got counted for that if the child decides in November or December to go, that they don't get the whole portion and take our part they already have. You know what I'm saying? We're hoping they're prorating that amount. Or if a kid's been gone and now decides to come back to us, that they prorate that, and it literally, again, the money follows the child. And something that you also, we get paid because we're so property, 90% comes from our taxpayers. We get most of our funds in November, December, and January. But we have to pay our bills all year long. And the board's done a really good job of keeping a fund balance that allows us to pay our bills in July and August and September and October without having to take out a loan. Because at one time we used to have to take out a TANS loan, a tax anticipation loan. We would take out a loan and pay our bills, and then when we got the money in November, December, pay the loan back. But that cost anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000, $70,000 in interest. And so the board has done a really good job about maintaining our fund balance. So we didn't have to do that. It's a waste of funds. Yes, ma'am.
I have a lot.
Okay.
A bunch of questions. First, I want to thank you both for being here. I think it was very informative, and I really appreciate that. One thing, I'm a mental health practitioner, and to hear that there's 5 for 9,467.
But no, there's 5 for the 5,000. The charter school has their own mental health department, and now we have school counselors. So we have about 20 school counselors, plus the mental health folks. Plus, we also contract with Livestream for potentials counselors and CCOS counselors. So we have
So you contract out with some
Yes,
counselors
ma'am.
that-
Yes, ma'am.
But employed by the school district or
Yes,
by,
ma'am. Right. And up to like 3 years ago, we had 0.
yeah. Well, I'm glad that there were some. I think we could do better. The other questions I have, I didn't see psychology in any of the AP courses.
We offer the ACE psychology course. We at one time did use AP psychology, but we, due to the section 6.1 of that controversy with AP psychology, we went with ACE. The school decided to go with the ACE psychology course instead.
And then my friend who left, who was sitting here, asked about African American studies, if that's been eliminated.
It's not eliminated. We've never offered that as a course. However, it is interwoven into other courses. It's not a set-alone course.
And is your certificate and international certificate of education the same as the international baccalaureate?
No, ma'am. That's IB is something different.
IB is something different.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Other than the village charter system, are there other charter schools in Sumter County?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Oh.
And what certainly with the expansion of the universal vouchers, some students must be attending private schools.
Yes, ma'am, we have one private school in Sumterville, it's called Better Life. They mainly serve students with disabilities.
What about parochial?
No, ma'am.
Real, so no.
No Christian academies or anything?
No, ma'am.
No.
I know in Lake County they have First Academy, I think it's called, but no, ma'am, not in Sumter. Yes, ma'am.
You talked about safety first. Could you go more into what safety protocols there are for keeping kids safe?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, safety falls under me. We have a SRO, or a school resource officer at every school. We have school guardians that are individuals that are trained and have concealed weapons, but no one knows who they are. We have about 6 of those. We also have a single port of entry. All of our campuses are fenced in to where you have to go through a buzzer system to get into the office. We have a raptor system, which everyone has to do an ID or a badge to get in that verifies and makes sure they're not a predator or there's something not wrong, they're not supposed to be there. We also have our school safety officer, who is actually currently the president of all the school safety officers of the state. He is very active in state legislation and working with our mental health program and our safety program. He's also he worked for the sheriff's department, so he's still a law enforcement officer. He has arresting capabilities as well. And that we have camera systems. We have what's called Zero Eyes that we just received. And we just tested it to where anywhere on our campus where there's a camera available, we can detect if a gun's been pulled out. It works really well, either a handgun or a long gun. We have security systems, we have cameras. All of our systems are hooked up to the Sheriff's Department's 911 office. We have an alert system called Raptor that anyone can push if there's something wrong. We also have the Alyssa's alert on every kid's computer to where if there's something wrong they want to report, they can do that anonymously. So I think that we are way above in the state. We've had several surprise inspections over the last 2 months, and we've passed all of them with flying colors. The individuals, inspectors try to come in and trick you, like, I left my ID out of the car. Here's my state badge. I don't care that you have a state badge, and they make them go out and get their ID. We have all of our classrooms are to be locked. Any staff member that goes, especially district staff member that goes on campus, we're always checking doors. Any employee will tell you that the first rule is lock your doors. That presents more issues than you can imagine, as long as they keep their doors locked. We have hard corners, safe corners, to where kids know where, like for instance, with these windows in here, your best bet would be down that hallway, of course, because there's really no safe corner because if you have these windows. We have tents, tinting our glass to where you can't see in during the daylight. We have left about 3 inches on the top to where law enforcement have those mirrors they can look up to see if everything's okay. We have a Rollins security system, our intercom system, that teachers can go in and log on to. Instead of, back in the day, we used to put out, like during drills or emergencies, put out green cards out the door. Well, that lets someone know that there's somebody in there, they're okay. So now we have an electronic system to where it buzzes in to every school has like a mobile command center, and they do it on the computer that says we're okay, and then they can go and look, and so we haven't clicked in yet, that's where the problem's at. So we have done a lot of things. My school resource officer and I our safety officer just went to Walton County last week and did from active shooter drill all the way through the reunification of parents to students and an emergency. Went through that, and we'll be doing one of those here soon to simulate what that would be like. So there's a lot of things that we're doing. Like I said, safety's first. Yes, ma'am.
I understand the villages have made Sumter no longer sparse.
Yes, ma'am.
But we're also generating huge amounts of school taxes, which we're hoping are improving, other
Yes,
than the charter school.
Yes, ma'am.
So are you now a well-funded district that gets to build all kinds of
No,
stuff?
ma'am. That's where the misconception is. The taxpayers and property tax has generated the funds, but what happened was the state still tells us you can only have $100 million.
Where does it go?
Well, 80% of our funding goes to staff, personnel, all those people. But what, and I don't know where and see, what happens is that out of that 100, say we're using 100 million, it's easy. 900,000 of it comes from property tax. And 100,000 from the state. It doesn't matter, so your taxes in many cases are lower than other districts because it's set by the state and we're capped at 90%. I don't get any more per student than anybody else does. You know what I'm saying? Just because like Monroe County or Miami-Dade, we all get about the same amount for kids. It's just where the funding comes from. We don't get more.
So if we pay in more than this 900,000 or whatever in property,
It doesn't come from schools.
it goes somewhere else.
It goes for wherever your other, fire or the county. Ours is set. We don't get any more. They established the required local effort. We don't set that. And so they calculated how much we need for that 90%, and that's what that you're charged. Yes, ma'am.
How does the money not following the students from the other county affect that?
Well, how it affects that is that Sumter taxpayers pay more because you're paying for about 2,000 kids that are not yours. Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain how homeschooling is supervised?
Well, not a lot because we're not allowed to. The only thing that we're allowed to do is we do they have to register with us and intend to homeschool, and they have to provide us an annual evaluation once a year. We can't ask them what they're using, we can't ask them anything, nothing.
Do they graduate? Where do they graduate?
Well, some students do Florida Virtual or homeschool, and Florida Virtual, they do the courses through that. We do have a Sumter Virtual program, and we will issue a certificate or diploma through us, and we actually have once a year in the summer, we'll hold a GED, CNA, home ed graduation or virtual graduation through that. But their parents can say they graduated and that doesn't come through us.
Are they tested periodically?
Well, they can. It's not mandatory. Now, if they take funding, they have to test. That's why out of that 1,000 kids, they're not all going to get that money because they don't want to test. Now, some of that's going away, maybe. There's some legislation out there about the 3rd grade promotion, and we lose a lot of kids with the 3rd grade promotion and the 10th grade promotion required for testing. They can't pass the test, so the parents will take them home. But they, if they get the funding, they have to test through the state's test, and we have to test them. They come to one of their own school, and we test them. Part of that annual evaluation, they can choose to come to school and test, or they can get a certified teacher to go over their portfolio of their work, and they sign off on them. So there's that.
But homeschool kids can request services, can they not? So if they need speech and language or something else, they can't?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Voucher kids can.
Oh, not if they're going, because the voucher's not coming to us. The voucher's going someplace else, so wherever they're being served.
But if a child's in a parochial school and their parents are paying for it and they need speech and language or they need.
That happens at the private school.
It happens at the parochial school, really?
Yeah, we do not serve any.
So you're not required or responsible to give them whatever.
No, ma'am.
Different in every state?
Yep. Yep.
I think there are hundreds of questions. I will thank you very much. The more you hear, the more you want to learn, the more you want to know. Thank you so much for helping us be better informed citizens and taxpayers and advocates of our public schools.
Well, thanks for asking. I mean, we want you to know what good things we're doing, and we want your support, so thank you for asking.
We probably will do that again, maybe make this an annual, because so much in education is changing.
It does, it changes a lot, and we have an early session this year, so that session will happen in, February, March. So we'll have, different rules and legislation soon.
Do you want to just mention school board meetings?
School board, the meeting, where we hold our meeting, usually, my voice doesn't carry. We hold our board meetings usually on the first and the third Tuesday of every month, but this time of the year, our next board meeting will be December the 14th, I think it is, and then it'll carry over into the middle of January. There are certain months that we're only going to have one meeting, but we meet down at Bushnell at the district office, 5:30, and it is open to the public. We would love to have any of you there. It's, if you want to know the exact dates, you need to go on our website, or Pat can, give you my information, or she can tell you when the board meetings are. But, about every 3 months, or every 4 months, we meet in Wildwood, at the new Wildwood Intermediate School on 466A, and that's going to be there in February. So that might be a better one for any of you to attend.
It's easy to get to.
Yeah, easy to get to. It used to be our Sumter Prep Academy, which was our alternative school, but due to the growth in the Wildwood school zone, we took the 3rd and 4th graders, fourth and fifth graders from Wildwood Elementary and the 6th graders from Wildwood Middle High School, and put them into their own school, which we call the intermediate school now, which is 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. That's in Sumter Prep, moved down to Bushnell. So all of you are welcome. But I wanted to mention one thing real quick. When Mrs. Moffett was talking about safety, in February of 2018, with the Parkland shooting, the school district, I was not elected or appointed to the school board right then, but the district took over $1 million out of its capital improvement plan fund to start hardening the schools more than what they already were. So we were far ahead of other districts for getting their schools safer and being the safest we could be. And each year, it's close to that same amount that we keep building on that, because that's how safety is just our #1 priority for the students. So I just wanted to add that we were a step ahead of a lot of other districts with that. We were also a step ahead of the districts for online learning when everything was shut down for the pandemic, because we already had tablets or computers for every one of our students. So it was already set up. So when that happened, they were good to go. And those are just some of the reasons. That's one of the reasons, besides all of the programs that I talked about and having Avid and the way that our students learn, that our students normally test well above the state average. We've been very fortunate with the education that we're able to give our students. So that's it. Thank you very much.